Yeah, I think our live stream is on. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh. So this particular live stream is a special live stream because today I want to kind of go through a very sensational piece of information and data that has recently come out. I think it came out early morning Seattle time, or wherein and probably late evening in Pakistan and India time, regarding this so-called skirmish or war or that is going on between India and Pakistan. So people who don't know, India and Pakistan are two theocratic nations, one a Hindu country with many significant non-Hindu minorities like Sikhs, Christians, Muslims, and the other an Islamic state called Pakistan. And they have been undergoing some tensions, and as part of that tension, recently there have been air skirmishes, missiles being fired across the border. So it's all over the news. We can come to know about it. But there is some what eventually triggered this off was a killing of certain people in the disputed region of Kashmir, which is claimed both by India and Pakistan. And India laying a allegation against Pakistan that it is Pakistani terrorists or Pakistan-sponsored groups who killed these people. Now it's an open question who actually did it. My analysis is it is a false flag operation by India to generate international sympathy. But anyways, that triggered India claiming publicly that it's going to attack Pakistan and take revenge. And as part of that, I think on May 6th, they launched, and you can Google, my dates might be off. On May 6th, they launched a lot of missile-based attacks, surface to ground missiles, as well as huge packages of aircraft, strike packages, which came close to the Pakistan border and launched surface to ground weapons, standoff weapons against targets in Pakistani territory. As per India, they had hit 9 different places or 9 different set of targets, some as deep as 100 kilometers inside the Pakistani territory. Now, on the day this thing happened, same day, within hours, Pakistan claimed that they had shot down 5 Indian aircraft. And that was a sensational claim, like shooting down 5 modern aircraft in today's environment. That has never happened in recent memory, and that too in one skirmish. And so the question arose, how many aircraft were actually involved in this skirmish? Like, how can you shoot down 5? So the Pakistanis claimed they had evidence, and the Indians, as India is typically known to hide its, casualties. We saw that in Balakot, wherein they hid for 1 year that one of their helicopters had also gone down. But anyways, so the evidence we had, people in media, we started seeing CNN put up a kind of a headline claiming that Pakistan has claimed 5 aircraft being down, and they actually did not take that heading ever down, that headline or that report down. Many other prominent news agencies also put that particular claim up that 5 Indian aircraft were down, but they always quoted their source as primarily being the Pakistani government sources. So, and then we had one particular video emerge. So these claims were disputed, but we had one particular video emerge from the Indian side, wherein villagers are showing aircraft being down, and it is very visible that it has wings and pylons from Rafale, which is a French jet. So that was one confirmation that at least one aircraft got down. And then on the same day, there was some news channels in India which actually were reported from the site in Kashmir, where they reported that there were 3 aircraft which have been downed in Kashmir region as well, and one of the reporters were actually standing right in front of that wreckage. So that gave credibility that okay, publicly in social media now we have kind of an understanding that there were a minimum of 4 aircraft which came down. Now India has kept disputing that. India has banned any Twitter account, even of their own serving or retired officers who have claimed that there is truth to this, that 5 Indian aircraft did came down, were brought down by the Pakistanis. They have censored all that information within India. They obviously can't censor it internationally, and they don't have that much power and wherewithal as yet. So, so that has been a mystery. But what one big revelation, and I would say it's a breaking news that have happened, is that the Pakistani deputy chief of air operations, Mr. Sidhu, he did a press conference. Air Marshal Sidhu, he did a press conference in which he outlined that entire battle and how exactly they were able to shoot down these 5 Indian aircraft. And as per him, 3 Rafales, one MiG-29 of Russian origin, and then one Su-30 of Russian origin, which is with the Indian Air Force. So I thought it's an ample opportunity for me, because I am, just to give my background, I'm an Indian Air Force veteran. I have served in the air defense systems of India as a fighter controller. I'm also third generation veteran. So I have a decent understanding. And one of my postings was actually with Army. So I have a decent understanding of air defense, especially air battle, because that's what I was trained to do. So this was a special occasion because the information shared by the deputy chief is primarily the information that people in my profession dealt with or deal with on a day-to-day basis. That's the core of our profession. We control the air battle as fighter controllers. So, so it's very interesting. I found it very intriguing. That whole presentation is full of information, and it is information which I can promise you will be studied for next God knows how many decades by militaries and air forces across the world. There will be research done, military research done on this, because it's phenomenal. What happened in that skirmish between Pakistan and India is unprecedented in modern era. We had almost 125 aircraft, modern aircraft, with sophisticated standoff, beyond visual range weapons up in the air, fighting each other, slogging it out for more than 1 hour. This has never happened in human history, like in the modern history, because these weapon systems are very modern. And there were very intriguing parts of it. The Indian side mostly had um, uh, platforms which were like aircraft were Russian, also some European, and most of the missiles they carried were a mix of Russian and European missile systems, air-to-air missile systems. Their avionics were a mix of Israeli, European, and when I say European, it's mostly French, and then Russian. And on the Pakistani side, very interestingly, Pakistan fielded 100% Chinese equipment. So it was also the very first time we are seeing a battle wherein Chinese developed weapon platforms as well as weapons are deployed in real combat against European technology and Russian technology, to say the least. And surprise, surprise, uh, the we have to say, looking at this data, that the Chinese gained a upper hand, and this air battle is worth the analyzing, and maybe in one analysis will not do justice honestly to this, because there's so much information I might miss many points. So I welcome anybody. I've also welcomed speakers onto the stage, especially speakers who might be having some military experience. And let me actually, while we are talking, let me invite some of those guys, which I know are from US Air Force or US military, because they can really add a lot of nuance. And so I'm inviting Nate and Aaron. I know both of them have worked. One is in the Special Forces, and the other one is actually, I don't know where Aaron kind of served. But if anybody's down on the listeners who has a Air Force and military background, really invite you up. I welcome you come to give comments. So the way we will run it, and before we start how we will run this presentation, I'd like to invite a couple of people to come and be my co-host, and so that in case this is on the we are live streaming on Twitter. We are also having an open Twitter space. So let me invite a couple of co-hosts here. Mrs. Nathan, if you can please take co-host, that'll be super helpful. If anybody else wants to volunteer, please do that. That way, in case I lose connectivity, we have backups. What we'll do is the way we will run it is I will run you guys through the. I'll play the presentation by Deputy Air Chief of the Pakistani Air Force, Mr. Sidhu, and in between I will pause the presentation to help you understand what he's talking about because he made an excellent presentation. It makes sense to use that, and we'll run through the entire presentation. It's roughly around 10 to 15 minutes. But with pauses, we'll probably take around 40 minutes to cover it, and then we'll go into questions. Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. And so, people who are watching me live stream, you should now see Mr. Sidhu, he's the Deputy Chief of Pakistani Air Force, and what a professional presentation. He's very impressive, honestly.
Couple of touches up to 70 from their side, about 40, crossing 100 is the first ever in the history of aviation.
Okay, I just pause it to check. Can people, if somebody can also go and check whether people who are watching my live stream can hear Mr. Sidhu clearly and cleanly, that would be super helpful. If somebody can double check that while we are. Okay, here is Mr. Sidhu. He came out again today, and then he'll be going to the presentation.
It is going to be taught as a textbook case and study and a reference material in the aerial combat history. I will distill some tactical details for you because they impact on the larger strategy and run through very quickly so as to bring you all up to speed on what happened and how did it happen. This is the Indian side, this is the Pakistani side. We had some gaps in the north, from the south, in AEW just to support it. And the IF fighters started an initial build-up. This is the Pakistan.
Okay. Yeah. So, Paul, let's look at this picture. Okay. He's showing this map. So, on the left side is Pakistan, obviously. On the right-hand side, behind the black line, that black line is the international border. And then is India. And then on the north, you see that whole red area within the red line is the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, disputed territory between both these countries. And if you see, he is depicting right now on this that there was actually, when this thing started, the Pakistani side had already AVAX, the Airborne Early Warning System, Command and Control System. You see, it is a green track, which is like rectangular in nature, and you have this big aircraft kind of being shown there. Here, where my cursor is, if you can see it on the screen. And that is basically an AVAX. So an AVAX has a huge radar on top of it, and it also has all kind of data links, and it is connected. It is getting the radar picture. The benefit of an AVAX versus a ground-based radar is because your radar is up in the air, you are not impacted by ground level clutter, as well as you can go beyond the horizon. So the range is really extend. And literally in an AVAX, you can pick up an aircraft almost the moment it is like a couple of feet above the ground. Like even when the wheels are not, undercarriage has not been pulled up, they can pick up the aircraft. They can also pick up the radio telephony. They have very sophisticated electronic warfare suits, depending upon which AVAX you are using, how modern it is. So the fact that they had an AVAX up in the air and running, that means they were fully prepared. And the way you run AVAX is generally the AVAX has endurance of many hours. So you have 2 or 3 of them. And depending on how much area you want to cover, you have one kind of do all the coverage for 6 hours. Then another one will get airborne. It will cover for a couple of hours. So the fact that they have an AVAX up in the air tells you the state of readiness of the Pakistani Air Force. That's the first thing. And India obviously would have had its own AVAX back here. They are not showing it because it potentially was way far back in the Indian territory. And this is where I also want to point out, based on my experience when I was in the Air Force, we always rated the Pakistani air defense to be superior to the Indian air defense. But we never knew that it is their ability is so superior. And but we will see as the air marshal walks us through the what happened. So you see, what he's currently showing is the number of kind of, you see there are like two aircraft here, Pakistani, four aircraft up in the north, four here in the north. So at this point in time, they don't know that there is an attack happening. Okay, so as a normal operation, these aircraft are what we call combat air patrols. So what these aircraft do is they are always like three, four aircraft in the air in one region, three aircraft or two aircraft. Generally, there are two, and kind of patrolling another area. They'll keep going around in circles or rectangular patterns. Their job is just to be ready in case somebody comes, so the reaction time to intercept that package is reduced. At the same time, they also have pilots who are on the ground. Those are called operation readiness platforms at all air bases. Depending upon state of alert, they will have pilots ready to take off with full weapon load in a matter of like 1 minute or 1 minute 20 seconds, depending upon what SLA, how much they have to run to get to the cockpit. So 2 minutes, sometimes, depending upon the different situations, but not more than 3 minutes in any which way. So you have these caps which are already up in the air, but you can only have as many numbers because you are limited by fuel. So after some time, they have to get air to a refueling or land, or other cap has to get airborne. But you can have more aircraft ready to take off on the ground, which are called the workings. So what he's telling us is right now at around 12 or like middle of the night, they started seeing activity, like couple of aircraft taking off. If you see from Ambala, and Ambala, the airbase is Ambala in northern state of Punjab, is where all the Rafales are kept. This is the major base for the Rafales. So probably the Rafales got airborne first, and the Rafales will remain the center of gravity through the conflict, and see what happens.
Side, we had some gaps in the north, some in the south, in AEW.
So he said we had some caps in the north. Caps is the combat air patrol, and AEW, airborne early warning, that big aircraft at all.
Supported. And the IF fighters started an initial build-up that was picked up from the north and the center across IB at 0010 hours. And by that time, PF had initiated its response within 2 minutes.
Okay, important. So it says the first build-up happened from the north and from the center. The north is basically Ambala that I talked about, and center, what he's showing, I can see on the image, is Jaisalmer. Okay, so this is probably from where they could start picking up the build-up happening of a package of two packages. Okay, one coming to north, and that one package could split into multiple packages, and you will see that happening. And they started picking it up at 0100, 1 a.m. in the morning. Okay.
By 0012, our response was activated. The IF started to get their fighters get airborne in large numbers. By the time it has come to 12:30, we were pretty sure that this is going to be the day and the time to knock some sense into these guys once again. So we commenced our multi-domain operations, the pride and joy and the new concept of war that we have. This is a picture that getting jumbled up.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, this is a good view. So it takes time for build up. Okay, so let me just see.
New concept of war that we have.
Okay, so I've just frozen this picture. So what he's saying is that within 2 minutes, we were able to, of the first pickup of the first package, they were able to determine that this is something more than just aircraft taking off for training and sorting. They are going to do something, and so they activated some of their other aircraft which are on the ground, like ORPs and all. So they activated the air defense. Now the air defense is on highest alert. They can see a couple of packages coming, but it takes a build up. What happens is, generally, you see all these packages on the right-hand side. So when you attack, generally the attack, when you attack Pakistan, what Indian Air Force will do is it will have packages coming all across the IB from the bottom. You want to saturate the air defense and confuse them, because they won't know where the major hit will happen. Many of these packages will probably just turn back from the IB and not actually enter. But many of the packages might actually deliver the payload. And so it's to basically confuse the air defense. Like, if are all of these going to throw bombs, or like which is the main strike package? So that used to be the past. But in the modern day world today, things have changed. Maybe all of these are going to throw bombs because they all are capable to launch standoff weapons, and they don't even have to cross the international border to do that. And we'll talk about some of the weapon systems that were launched. One of them, missiles that the Indians used, is called Scalp or Storm Shadow. It has an on-paper range of 300 kilometers, but real range is 220 odd kilometers, 250, and standoff. So they can launch from 250 kilometers and they turned back, and you see they never entered the Pakistani airspace, all through the skirmish. So here is as it plays out.
This is the picture that getting jumbled up. We have huge number of IF fighters that are stacked up in azimuth and vertical all across, and the DCA response is in position. The complete package, when it gets into shape, it is on 4 axes, and we perceive that they will have 4 incisions just to embroil. Up to 60 aircraft, including 14 Rafales, were electronically ID'd.
Okay. So he's saying by around within 30 minutes, they saw that there are probably 4 different insertions that's going to happen. You see one in Jammu and Kashmir, the other on Punjab, the other right south of Punjab, and the other one right close between Gujarat and Rajasthan. So there are 4 packages coming, and in total 60 aircraft. But then he says there were 60, but in between when things started getting heated up, they also scrambled more aircraft to augment because their aircraft were getting shot. So the highest number of Indian aircraft that were in the air at any given point in time, at one point in time, there were 72 Indian aircraft, fighter aircraft, which were airborne and were part of this plan. And out of which 14 were Rafales. How does Pakistan know this? Pakistan knows this because nowadays we have technologies. You see that AWACS, AEW platform, which is in the back end, even the normal aircraft like JF-17 or J-10, when Indian fighters will open up their radars, they will have a certain frequency. So these other guys, they receive that frequency, they decipher that frequency, and then they can tell this frequency belongs to Rafale. This frequency is coming from a Su-30. And why they're able to pick up, you would say, like, why would they leave a signature? Because every radar has what we call an anti-jamming feature built into the frequency. So they kind of build a code into their frequency so that it is not jammed. But then the counter electronic warfare is that the receivers are then, depending on how intelligent a receiver is, it can understand that code and tell you still, oh, this is a Rafale. I understand this kind of coding is from a Rafale. So you understand that tells you, and if you don't understand how the code of the enemy radar works, you will not, your electronic warfare system will not be able to decipher and tell you whether this is a Rafale or Su-30. But it seems apparently like the Pakistanis had better electronic warfare capability in terms of understanding, like which aircraft is a Rafale, which is a Su-30, which is a MiG-29, and they could actually really identify it. And all their fighter aircraft which are defending the territory, they already knew that where are which package has the highest number of Rafales. And even within the formation, they were able to say whether the Rafales are in the back or in the front, all that kind of stuff. So all this is happening, keep it in mind, all this is happening in minutes. All this information is being pumped on. These are seconds and minutes. And the pilots who are sitting in these aircraft, they are reading all this, deciphering, and in their mind, they have tactics that they have practiced on how they will approach if it's a Rafale, how they will approach if it's a different aircraft, and they're all putting all that training to practice in those seconds. So I'll start it again.
But all through our electromagnetic operational environment, we call it the EMO. So by the time they were in air, we had sorted out and
Oh, sorry, I keep stopping it. But I'll request people who are in my space and people who are watching my live stream, can you please retweet this out as much as possible so more people can join as we go through the presentation. It'll be super helpful. Thank you.
Contracted all fighters and accounted for. The 60 number that augmented to 72 through their scrambles that kept on coming just to reinforce and supplement and to saturate the air defense. They thought they could do that for the Pakistani patch. air defense ground environment. The complete DCA package response by Pakistani side was also there. We had 42 high-tech aircraft on our side, and the strategy was to have force concentration in our selected AOR and fight at our own strength. By Pakistani side was
Okay. So I just scrambled it back just to give you a picture. So now the time has moved on. Okay. So we are probably 40 minutes into or 35 minutes into their first pickup of the package. So now you see on this image, there are more Pakistani aircraft in there. And this is happening in minutes. Like there are like 4 aircraft taking on from other base, 2 more taking on from another base. And they already know, by the time they are taking off, they are running to their aircraft, they get into the aircraft, they switch on the systems, their systems, their radar, they all have data link. They're already getting the picture of what's going on in the air, which package is where, and they have already practiced, okay, if I am going to take off, where do I have to go? And then they're also waiting for orders. And maybe those orders are coming from the AEW platform that, okay, this new package which is getting up, this new interceptor package which is getting airborne, you should go in this direction. You should go and augment this area. This is all happening real time. And you know who is directing all of these? All of these are being directed by some central operations control. Now that operations control could be sitting in that aircraft, or it could be on the ground, because nowadays we have data link. And you will hear about it. There is some one brain. Sorry, I got a call in between, which is directing all this battle. Because where should these all aircraft go? Otherwise, they have no idea when I'm getting airborne as an interceptor where to go. So somebody has to tell me I should go in this direction and then kind of concentrate on that particular package. You have to go in this direction. So that is what we call, that's the job like I used to do as a fighter controller. We plan air defense, and it's not just the interceptors they have. Imagine they also have ground-based weapons who are also under a single control. So that's where command and control is very important in air defense. And those weapon systems are also being given this picture, and they are formulating their strategy. When are they going to fire? How they are going to identify it as an enemy aircraft, and how they are going to identify they don't end up shooting down their own aircraft. So there's a huge array of actions happening as all this is going on, as sirens are blazing across their cities. So by this time, what the Air Marshal is saying is they had 42 Pakistani aircraft up in the air in a matter of minutes. Okay, so he already told you they had 2 caps in the air. In my experience, we used to have 2 aircraft caps, but here he was showing slightly more, like 4. So they probably had 8 aircraft already in the air. So they were able to augment those 8 with around how many more? Like 34 additional aircraft in a matter of minutes. This is phenomenal. I don't think India has this capability. At least when I was serving, we didn't have that capability in any environment to get 34 aircraft up in the air before the strike package has even reached the international border, leave alone enter it. So this tells you the state of readiness of the Pakistani Air Force, their level of training and their level of preparedness. Like he's not boasting about it because he's a professional. Unless if this was an Indian, honestly, and we will compare it in the end with this presentation with the presentation made by those 2 lady officers in India, which was to me was like pretty bad. It looked professionally, it looked unprofessional, and full of emotion, no data, no professionalism. But here it is, and he's not even kind of boasting about it, that we were able to get like 34 additional aircraft up in the air in a matter of like 3 to 6 minutes. Amazing. And then one thing is getting them up in the air. Another thing is aligning them to stop the attack. Okay. And it has probably never happened. What you're going to see in next few minutes, I don't think any other Air Force has ever demonstrated this level of competence, and you'll see why.
So there, we had 42 high-tech aircraft on our side, and the strategy was to have force concentration in our selected AOR and fight at our own strength.
Okay, you see how smart they are? So he's saying our strategy was to have force concentration in our AOR and fight at our own strength. So what he's saying is that they knew that the Indians over thought of themselves as invincible. That Indians had this wrong assessment of their capability and they were under assessing Pakistan's capability. So we were going to put our aircraft together in one area and the Indians will come for us, okay, thinking they can take us down. And we are going to give them a surprise, even as defensive systems.
Air fighters ensured Pakistan's air sovereignty, and because of that, we first rerouted all civilian traffic that was about to go from Lahore, Islamabad, and this area because we thought that this is going to be the hot plate. So,
Okay, amazing. What he's telling you is, look, all this has happened in minutes. Okay, so there are already civilian aircraft in the air. They had not closed down their airspace fully. There were aircraft up from in the air from Lahore going to Karachi, from Karachi going to here and there, and their AEW platform was so capable of controlling the airspace, it immediately diverted all the civilian aircraft out of that area within minutes. Now that takes practice, that takes high level of decision making, that takes, yeah, phenomenal. Let's keep watching.
so we wanted safety for all the.
Because keep it in mind, Indians have the surprise. Indians have already kept their civilian aircraft out. Okay, they don't have to worry about it. But the Pakistanis are kind of on the defensive. The civil aircraft are up in the air. They have to clear them up. Otherwise, there will be loss of civilian life, which will be unacceptable.
Civil airliners. When they had seen this kind of a strong defense on our side, they resorted to launching their air-to-ground weapons while being cis-frontier. As soon as they had launched the weapons, we could ID that instantly. And the chief of the air staff, as I mentioned, he was in the COC. He was being there for a couple of nights. I've seen him there. So when I
Okay, great. There are two very, very important points he makes. Okay. So he said, as the situation is developing, and these are minutes, we are talking about seconds. And the Indian packages are obviously also controlled centrally by some AEW platform. They realize, man, these guys have like really got a defense. There are 42 aircraft up in the air. So their initial plan, because India had these four packages, I can already tell you, most probably the Indian plan was to cross the IB and then drop the bombs. Not cross at all places, but only one of the packages cross. Because when you have people coming from all four places, the air defense doesn't know which one will cross. So they probably had one plan to cross, make one package cross and drop the bombs across. They didn't need to cross, but because they had standoff weapons, but they most probably wanted to cross to get a message across to Pakistan that we have superiority over you. We have air security. So this is a very important thing in air battles, messaging, and showing your air superiority. And I'm pretty sure, from whatever I know of the tactics that I was part of, now it's been 20 years when I've been in the Air Force, they definitely one of the packages planned to cross. And that's why, Mr. Sidhu, Air Marshal Sidhu here is he rightly pointing out that once they saw this much of aircraft having taken off from Pakistani side, they changed their plan mid-air. So they went to plan B. The plan B was to use standoff, not cross the IB, and basically hit the targets from within India. I think it's a correct assessment.
He said that he spearheaded and he led from the front. He really did that. And he changed the contract. We were given the rules of engagement first to deter. And as soon as this thing happened, we changed our rules of the game in the air. From deter to assure kill, deny on loss. Our strategy changed. We had a plan. We thought that Indians.
Okay, this is very important to hear. Okay, I want you guys to hear it again, what he said. Okay, and see what he basically points out.
Nights, I've seen him there. So to launching their air-to-ground weapons while being cis-frontier.
So here, what he talks about, who was controlling the air battle on their side. Okay, I've never heard this ever in my experience, but hear what he says.
As soon as they had launched the weapons, we could ID that instantly. And the chief of the air staff, as I mentioned, he was in the COC. He was being there for a couple of nights. I've seen him there. So when I said that he spearheaded and he led from the front, he really did that. And he changed the contract. We were given the rules of engagement first to deter. And as soon as this thing happened, we changed the rules of the game in the air from deter to assure kill.
Okay, my God, phenomenal. Okay, any air defense professional hearing what he just said, will admire what the Pakistanis did in these seconds, and especially anybody who knows how saturated the Indian and Pakistani airspace is and how little space there is and how difficult it is to make these judgments. Okay, so what he said was first, he said we had an advantage because our chief of air staff was spearheading or controlling this battle sitting in the COC. So you have to ask yourself a question. Okay, what's the big deal? Like chief of air staff was controlling, he should be controlling such a big battle. But chief of air staff doesn't know when the battle will happen. It's not, they were not the attackers. Indians probably had the chief of air staff on this side, which is expected because they had planned and launched it. The Pakistani side doesn't know. And that's why he explained that how he ended up doing was because every night he was doing night duty for the last couple of weeks. He was actually sitting and living in that operation room. The chief of air staff of the Pakistani army, because it is not possible within 5 minutes to come from your home and rush into the COC. So he most probably had camped outside there, moved all his office there, and was doing night shift duties as other officers, or at least sleeping somewhere there, trying to be available when this critical moment comes so that he can make the decisions, because such critical decisions have to be made that which could have geopolitical and political implications. And that is why A. Marshal Sidhu here points out that what are those decisions? Let me play it out. India and Pakistan have an agreement. They have a standard operating procedure. You can come up to 5 kilometers of the ID. Nobody will get shot down. Okay? Nobody will shoot you down. You can even cross the ID, or slightly. But the agreement is that as long as you don't show a hostile intent, and there's a particular definition what a hostile intent means, you cannot declare or you cannot shoot the other guy. Okay, so that's the SOP. But in the modern world, okay, in the modern world today, when you have standoff weapons, when somebody can fire a weapon like from 200 kilometers inside Indian territory, how does this SOP work? Like, it is a redundant SOP. So nobody knew how it's going to work. So what he's saying is that our radar systems, our sensors were so superior that while the Indian aircraft were many, many kilometers inside their own boundary, and they were afraid now of crossing, the moment they launched their air-to-ground weapon payloads, like which I already talked about, one was Scalp, which is a Storm Shadow, and the other one is actually a Hammer. Hammer bomb is another French or I think British kit, which goes onto a dumb bomb and makes it smart, makes it a glide bomb with GPS coordinates and whatnot. Their sensors were able to pick up that these aircrafts have launched these missiles. Phenomenal. That's not an easy thing. I know technology has progressed from the time I used to work in radars, but to be able to understand using sensors and radar that these aircraft have launched, air-to-ground missiles are not huge. They are sleek, long. Maybe they have an RCS, but how big? And they were able to pick up, and they were confident that the Indians have launched missiles to hit Pakistan, and they were able to calculate the trajectory of those missiles, where they were headed, and conclude that these are hostile. And that's why he said we changed. Our first strategy was when any such thing happens to deter so that they don't do anything. But now that we know that they are hostile, that they have launched their weapon systems, we changed our strategy in the midair. And he correctly points out we were able to change it because we had our chief of air staff there. Otherwise, if it was an officer like me who is very junior, okay, I can tell you, like, I won't make that decision. What if it is not launched? What if my radar is telling me a lie and I started a nuclear war? I'll be court-martialed next day. If I give an order to, okay, go ahead, hostile, the ground controller or the airborne early warning controller has to give the order to fire or not to fire. The pilot doesn't take that order on his own, because the pilot has limited attention and a lot more information to. He has to focus a lot more on other things. He's focusing on firing. So that controller who's controlling the battle, or in this case, the chief of air staff, had to make that decision, and they were able to make. That's why he points out they were able to make this decision because their chief was leading from the front. Nobody's going to court martial the chief. He can even say it was an error. It was an error. So he basically took the call. They changed their strategy from deter to now basically, a sure kill. And a sure kill means go ahead and make sure you kill it, and deny own loss. That's what he says. Talks about the strategy.
Deny own loss. Team strategy changed. We had a plan. We thought that Indians, the last time they said that they would have Rafales and they would have created any difference. So we targeted their center of gravity and the Rafales. That's why you see good numbers for that. You would have.
Okay, now he's kind of creating a joke. He's saying because the Prime Minister Modi boasted, now he's talking about Prime Minister Modi, the knew where are the Rafales, and because Modi gave that boast, okay, if we had Rafales when the Balakot strike happened in 2019, the things would have been very different. So that because he said that, we wanted to teach Indians a lesson. So they had all these 4 insertions. They could have picked up anyone. They said, we focused on the center of gravity where the Rafales were. So they went for the most advanced, aircraft available. They didn't went for the weakest. They went for the most advanced strike portion of the strike package. Phenomenal. I would say that's phenomenal. That much confidence the Pakistani Air Force had that they can shoot it down. Because imagine if you are in a battle, you would rather take down a couple of MiG-29s first, okay, rather than try to go after the Rafale. But they said, we wanted to prove a point. And they won't do this unless they have practiced it, okay, unless they know they are superior to Rafales. So a couple of months back, we had, if you guys hear the news, you had seen that the Pakistani Air Force had borrowed Rafales from some other Muslim country. This is what they were doing with it. They were practicing their tactics of J-10C, JF-17 against Rafales. They had proven those tactics. They knew the J-10Cs and JF-17s are superior to Rafale. That is why that confidence, that training allowed them to go after Rafales and not the other aircraft. So hats off. This is what is training. Okay, when people say it's not just the machinery, it is also the training, it is also the honesty, professionalism. This is what we are talking about. But if you have an air force now today like India, which will lie, which is not even admitting that it had its 5 aircraft got down, what kind of professionalism are we talking about? I'm so deeply disappointed. I served in the Indian Air Force, but I'm honestly deeply disappointed because one of the key aspects of Air Force is what we call debriefing and learning. Everybody has to be debriefed why the thing did not work so that the whole system learns. But there is no debrief that happened after Balakot because the Indian government said, tell your officers we actually won. And because they didn't debrief properly Balakot, that they actually lost that battle, today they had to face loss of 5 aircraft. And because now they are again lying and trying to hide this fact, now the Indian Air Force Officer Corps cannot do honest debriefing. So the Indian Air Force's level of professionalism will further go down in the next couple of years. I hope you guys understand this. Professionalism is key to being a good air warrior. And the Pakistanis here are showing their professionalism. And it's apparent in the way they were able to go after Rafales. So you'll see what he said. We went after Rafales.
More numbers, but be sure to stand.
Okay, so let's hear this out again. Okay.
We had a plan. We thought that Indians, the last time they said that they would have Rafales and they would have created any difference. So we targeted their center of gravity and the Rafales. That's why you see good numbers for that. You would have had more numbers, but be sure to stand.
Okay, you see, this is how a professional soldier behaves. He clearly pointed out that this was the reason we went, but he's not boasting. He's not making fun of the enemy. They're doing their job. If it was some Indian Gobar Arya type guy, You guys know how they brief, and look at that lady where they got like a shameless way she kind of debriefs her, Colonel Sophia Qureshi. I have no words to kind of say what a bigger disappointment from Indian Army. Like when she comes and debriefs on behalf of India, it's full of emotion, as if she's the some kind of a script writer for a Bollywood movie. There's no professionalism, no kind of restraint in time of showing. Talk in a normal voice. Talk like don't show emotion. But look at this guy. He makes such a huge point and the huge point that he makes is that we could have taken down more, but we showed restraint, and he is absolutely right. Out of 72, if the Pakistani Air Force in that battle was able to hit five, they were obviously having more targets than five. They could have taken down easily 10 to 12 aircraft. But they definitely showed restraint. And they showed restraint because their air chief was leading from the front. Because had they downed 10 aircraft, that would have led to, escalation. Pakistan losing control of the escalation there. Because then India would have gone mad and gone more what. So in that madness. So this is called when you are the superior force, you want to control the escalation. The, the air force, the army which can control it, is the one who is in charge. So this is where he's making that point. We are in charge of the escalation. We showed restraint.
Ladies and gentlemen, the thing about this whole playtime was this thing lasted for more than an hour. With so many large number of aircraft, so many large number of aircraft on both sides, with so many grinds, and the flow of the DVR, the modern warfare has changed so much with the long stick. The employment is if you don't shoot, you get shot. So that is why the art was to employ them optimally, and that was a big challenge for us.
Okay, this is huge. Okay, so he's acknowledging, how challenging this was, and he emphasizes, okay, that it went on for more than an hour. Now, for some of you, you might think, okay, what is the big deal? 1 hour, battle, but air battles, historical air battles, they have actual combat historically have never gone on beyond more than 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, maximum 10 minutes. Because what happens in the traditional air combat, where aircraft used to get very close to each other, they will actually move. You have seen all those movies called, Top 10 and all, where the aircraft are very close to each other. They're doing this dogfight. There are no longer any dogfights happening in the modern world. Okay, because in the dogfight you have to go on afterburner. You burn a lot of fuel in like seconds, so your endurance to remain in the air just drops. But in the modern world, what has happened is you have air-to-air refueling. So if you're short of fuel, you can go back, get refueled, come back again. Another thing that has happened is what we have is called BVR combat. So the BVR combat means that now the aircraft don't even have to get in close vicinity. So they can remain at large distances from each other at a leisurely pace. They don't even have to move fast unless they are evading a missile. And they basically, what happens in a BVR combat is you will see aircraft approaching each other almost at a distance of 100 kilometers. They will launch missiles, and both of them will turn back to evade that missile that both of them have launched. So, and then they will come back again facing each other, again launch missile, then turn back. It's almost like two aircraft are circling 100 kilometers apart. But what they're doing is they're constantly trying to make sure they have a better firing solution, and their missile hits the. I'm giving you a very crude way of it, but while doing this, you can get close. But the fact is that you will hit the aircraft from beyond visual range. So in this kind of an environment, wherein if you don't launch the missile like the other guy has launched, you are done. Especially if you don't have a way to evade that missile. So the aircraft which has a superior radar, which has a superior missile systems, which has a superior electronic warfare capability built into the missile, and which also has a superior data link as well as superior surveillance or bigger radar backing it up in form of AEW and superior tactics, that aircraft wins the battle. So that's what he's pointing out. 1 hour. There is no modern history in human history. There is no air battle till now which has gone on for the same set of aircraft. The combat has gone on for more than 1 hour. No, it has never happened. First time in history. And we are seeing it first time because it has happened first time. It has never happened before. The Ukraine and the Russians, they don't have aircraft in such large numbers, in such closed airspace fighting each other. So we never know. And with so much of equipment backing them up, okay? Because it's a dispersed airspace, Ukraine doesn't have that much capability. So they'll have small packages going, dropping, trying to come back. This is where you have like 120 odd aircraft. It's a slugfest, like in a restrained, saturated airspace with huge AEW assets backing them up. It's kind of a stuff which is made of fiction, honestly. Like it's kind of some stuff which will military aviation experts will learn for next like 30, 40 years. It will be taught for many, many decades. Okay, so that's what he's saying, that it went on for more than an hour. So he himself is surprised. You look at his face, like I had not never thought I'd be fighting a battle for 1 hour in the air. Okay.
That is why I say that it has never happened before. These are the locations which are
Okay, awesome. Now he's going to walk you through. They actually know exactly which aircraft they downed, where they downed, the coordinates, the everything he will show and talk to you about.
range bearing, electronic ID that we think that we are sure that we have shot. A MiG-29 was shot 8 miles from LOC, bearing 243 nautical miles from Srinagar. A Su-30 was shot 192, 19 miles, 45 miles from LOC. We have the exact details because you cannot, in the modern battlefield, you cannot conjure up things out of imagination. You have an electronic ID. The aircraft gets picked up by his data.
Okay, so your here is kind of taking a, I would say, pot shot at the Indian Air Force by saying this is modern world. You cannot make up things out of thin air. You know that I shot something. I think he's referring to the Indian claim that they shot down an F-16 in 2019 Balakot battle, and he's saying, "Hey, if you had all that, why don't you just tell us exactly the spot, the coordinates, and the electronic share that electronic signature, whatever you have." He's kind of taking a pot shot at that. Yeah.
Link, as soon as you put on your radar, you show yourself, and nobody can hide, nobody can deny that. Rafale was shot 54 miles from LSP in Srinagar. So you can have all these details. We have exact range bearings because and when you deploy your weapon, you know exactly when the missile is getting active, when it is getting, and the flip is disappearing, which is verified as you get down on for the debrief. So none of the claims have any patch in them. So they are pretty clear, pretty concise, pretty accurate. And I have an audio from a Rafale formation that I will share. The call sign is Godzilla. Those animals are extinct. So this one also got extinct. Please play. So he's asking whereabouts of this formation number.
Okay, so before I go there, I just want to do a check. For some reason, I can't see my. Can people see the live stream? Live stream on my profile? For some reason, I can see the live stream. Very interesting. What is that happening? I can see the live stream working on my other account, but for some reason not on my FTW profile. If some people can go on my this account timeline and tell me if the live stream is not working, DM me. That'll be super helpful. Okay, so I'll restart. We'll go back a bit and just restart this.
Names have any patch in them. So they are pretty clear, pretty concise, pretty accurate. And I have an audio from a Rafale formation that I will share. The call sign is Godzilla. As soon as those animals are extinct, so this one also got extinct. Please play. So he's asking whereabouts of this formation number. So the formation knows, his leader knows that his number, one of his number, type number is not there. They have an RT. This is the original RT that they are exchanging, and there are.
Okay, I'll read out what happened in this. RT is radio telephony. Okay, so this is they have. So he's basically showing another ability by actually playing out this excerpt from the radio telephony. He's basically showing a capability. He's showing to the Indians and the world that, dude, we knew whatever you were even talking to each other. Now, that's not a small thing because the radio telephony is all jumbled, okay? So it's kind of coded nowadays, especially for Rafales. That Rafale proud itself that, this is called electronic warfare capability, or and that our radio frequencies are jumbled. So in the old world, these radio frequencies used to be high frequency, VHF, HF, whatever. Like even if you have a listener, you can just put on a listener and you can actually hear the radio telephony going on. And all the modern jets have scrambled. It's kind of, I think there's a specific name they call it for. So it's kind of, there's codes built into it. Nobody else can listen to it and nobody else can jam it. Okay. But what they are showing is that they were able to record everything. They knew they were talking. Their controllers, their air chief sitting there in the COC was live listening to what the Indian pilots are talking. And they showed only one excerpt to just show that the amount of confusion that they had. And they picked up the radio telephony excerpt from the Rafale formation, which was Godzilla. And you see Godzilla 4, Godzilla 3. This is just the number of aircraft. So number 1 is generally the leader. So apparently they probably had 4 aircraft in this formation. And so Godzilla 4 says, reading you fine. And then Godzilla 3, is silent. So maybe before that, Godzilla 3 might have gave a call out, hey, do you read me? And Godzilla 4 says, reading you fine. Then Godzilla 3 is silent for a lot of time. Then Godzilla 4 says, maintaining 300. It's a way of him to kind of prompt and say, hey, why are you not responding? Maintaining 300. And that's his ground speed. And Godzilla 4 then gives another call. Ops normal, check operations for Godzilla 3. So he's saying, my operations are normal. Godzilla 3, check your operations. Give me a call whether your operations are running normal. There's silence, and then Godzilla 4 says, reporting explosion in air. Okay, so this is sometimes what happens is, he's saying there's an explosion in air. So he's reporting that, and this could be a code word. I'm betting this is a code word that they are using to report that, the Godzilla 3 is down. And why they have this kind of code? Why didn't previously the aircraft used to say, that, okay, this aircraft is down or that is down. They're not saying it because so that it's not very apparent that they lost one aircraft in case somebody is listening to the RT in the future. And that's exactly what happened there. Godzilla 4 is basically reporting an explosion in the air. And it's very clear in the RT. I know you guys probably can't make out what they're talking, but my ears, because I've worked so many years, I could clearly hear what the pilot is talking. But to a normal ear, for you, it is difficult to understand what the pilot is saying because of the background noise. But for us, it's very clear, and that's why I kind of repeated it out to you. So we'll play it again.
Asking about his position. He's giving his own operations as fine, but he has claims that I've seen an explosion in the air. I will share this detail. It's a long RT that we have. If we can hear one RT of one formation number, we can hear all of them in panic and in distress. So the idea was to just to.
So here he makes another claim, and you see, look at his body language, right? He's a pure professional, okay? Like he's saying, oh, we could hear them, and it's empathy he's showing, and he's saying, yeah, we panic and distress, and he's kind of lowering his voice and kind of nodding his eyes, kind of acknowledging, because he knows this could happen to him. He's not taking any joy in stating it, and unlike the Gobar Aryas and these unprofessional jokers of the world, he's basically saying we could hear everyone, and there was panic and confusion in the air. They could have played all those panic audios here and made it look way worse than what they picked up. So hats off to Air Marshal Sidhu. This is what soldiers do. We do our job, we get our kill, we get the message across, but we don't boast about it afterwards. So that's very unprofessional. And we boast about the bravery of somebody, right? If somebody did something extra, we don't boast about, okay, I inflicted pain, like that idiot Gauravarya, aag laga do Karachi shahar ko, ye chala do. If that, I don't know what word I could use, that scum is listening to him, like or me, or even A. Marshall Sidhu, man, like it's kind of like grow up, guys. Anyways, SK had her or his hand raised. Please go ahead, SK, before we proceed.
Mm, uh, Yes, hello, guys. So I want to know that is there any impact happening in India on Pakistani attack?
Yeah, SK, just hold on to this question. This question is not right now. We'll come to it, and we have occasional geopolitic. Occasional, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was listening to these Pakistan military. Very interesting. Uh, Looking at both sides, it seems like Pakistan has a lot more maturity the way they're coming across to the world, whereas the Indian side, a lot of jingoism from their ex-military servicemen on Twitter, general public and the media. So I
Yeah,
think
just hold
that's
on. Just occasional. Just hold on. If for now, as we have not finished this presentation, like from the Air Marshal, it's going to be over in a couple of minutes. For now, if somebody wants to raise their hand, please ask me question on the specifics of what Air Marshal is saying. Okay. Any general comments on the presentation? We'll hold on, and we'll have plenty of time to discuss that later. Okay. So I want to make sure we go through this full, and then we'll have a lot of time to talk about all that. Okay. So definitely, if you have something very specific to add, if you're a military guy, you have picked up something that I have missed, feel free to take the mic, join, add value, especially anybody from the U.S. military or U.S. Air Force, or like which I call objective. Air Force. No Indian Air Force guy, unfortunately, will come online. They're too scared of this government. Like, and this is a quote unquote democracy. Okay, none of their every Air Force officer worth his salts knows what is happening, what happened. And unfortunate that it's people like me who have to come out, be in the free world, and then present the truth, and even that truth is not allowed to reach back. So this doesn't help India in any way. The Indian government is thinking. Anyway, let's continue.
Surprise you guys and to share with you how complicated this was. Uh, how if this example can be taken not to do when you know that the adversary has the long stick. Uh, but I must say that it is not the equipment that matters all the time. It is the training, it is the leadership that gives you the direction and the ownership that it shows. That's what matters. And the training, the operational competence that the whole formation has. And I hope they are slow learners, but I think they can get the drift of not doing it again. Thank you.
Okay, you see, amazing. Like it is like I think like it's a lesson in every single sentence this officer is saying. You see how maybe you guys didn't notice the nuance, what I'm noticing. Okay, so he's saying it is not the equipment which matters all the time. So he's not saying that the equipment does not matter. He's saying not in every situation the equipment will get, but there are some situations where equipment will, get you the win. It is also the training, the leadership, and he's acknowledging the leadership of the chief of air staff of Pakistani Air Force, and the leadership of Pakistani chief of is visible. He was there in the ops room, but he is not here making the presentation. He doesn't want to be here and spend his time pleasing the public or pleasing his bosses. He's done his job. They send his deputy, go make the presentation, be that guy, go and take the glory. Amazing. Which other air chief would have let this opportunity go and kind of not do this briefing on his own? And when the Indians took the losses, what they do? They sent a poor wing commander and a poor colonel to go and do the briefing to the entire area. And I can tell you, if this was India which had downed the aircraft, their chief would have been there taking the mic like GD Bakshi or Gobar Arya, and they're like taking pride. हमने ये कर दिया, हमने वो मार दिया. Have some shame, Indians. What have come on you? Like I served in the Indian Air Force. I've served with very professional officers. God knows where they have gone. I think it's all just like Gobar type. Or I don't know what. Anyway, let's not use those words. And then he says, and then he ends it with, he's basically talking to his counterpart. He's like, I hope like you learned the lesson and you get the best. And that's it. He just ends it with that.
So this is
Okay, now we've come back, and the air chief presentation is over. This was the other major presentation given by the DGISPR, basically out there daily himself, briefing his nation, his country, and what is happening on the Indian side. They put out these two poor, one wing commander, a lady officer, another colonel. Nobody knows who they are. Like those poor guys can't even utter a single word. They're given like a script written by some bureaucrat who enters all the lies, and then he hands that script over to these two ladies, and they have to utter lies while wearing uniform. It's just shameful, shameless. I hope, like some Indian Army general just has the balls and the courage to kind of put an end to that, poor show. But anyways, hats off to the Pakistani Army. Amazing presentation, and what a battle. I was not expecting this. When this information came out, some of the international media channels were briefing that, oh, there were 120 aircraft in the air battling out. I was in disbelief. I said, like, no man, 120 aircraft is not possible. Like it's possible, but like it's highly unlikely. And then the Pakistanis initially claimed that they actually took down these 5 aircraft in the same package which came to hit them. And I was like, the Pakistanis can't be this good. How is it possible? That would mean a level of capability which is, in my book, I don't know whether they had it, but like, that's phenomenal. But the data that he showed today, I think it is exactly what would happen. Now that we know there are minimum 4 Indian aircraft down on the Indian side, that mystery is open to me. Like now I know how they were able to do it. I was always like, how come they brought down 4 aircraft? It's kind of at a minimum 4. Now the Pakistan is saying it's 5, but I know at the minimum they took down 4. And compare this to what the Indians are doing. The colonel, the topmost defense analyst, Mr. Ex-Colonel Praveen Sani, he basically tweeted. That, or actually published a video in which he claimed that at a minimum, as for him, 4 Indian aircraft have been downed by the Pakistanis. And you know what the Indian government did? They blocked the video or actually the channel of the topmost defense analyst within India. And only yesterday or 2 days before, if you guys had read this big announcement for Twitter, which has till now been banning hundreds and thousands of Twitter accounts of 6 on orders of India, they finally had to tell the whole truth to the world that in one particular request, one sweep, India told them 2 days back to ban 8,000 big Twitter handles, many of them from reputed international agencies, and then they had no option but to comply. You always had an option, Elon, if you have some guts, if you are man enough, if you can stand behind your principle that you so openly propound, freedom of speech and all that, this bull crap. He basically kneeled down and banned all those 8,000 Twitter accounts in India. So amazing, and that is why the Indian government wants to keep its own population brainwashed with false propaganda, it seems. But this is a pain. Let's not go there too much. Just want to stick to this professional battle that happened between 2 professional air forces. Unfortunately, I have to say the Indian Air Force is not as professional as it used to be. Otherwise, it should admit what happened and kind of provide its side of the picture on what their learnings are and what they're doing about it. But that apparently is not going to happen with the current regime. But yeah, with that said, I'll take some questions. I'll request the people to. You can ask any question, but yeah, anything specific that you picked up will be super helpful to get more input. Paguji, go ahead. Yeah. Yes. And look, this is the beauty of this presentation. They shared exactly the coordinates. Let me read it out where everything fell, okay? And let me share on my screen. Okay, if people who are on the live stream. So the aircraft which fell northernmost, and the coordinates are 243 degrees, 20.5 nautical miles from Srinagar, and 8 nautical miles inside LOC, was a MiG-29. And so 243 degree basically means it's north of Srinagar, almost northwest of Srinagar. Uh, and then the second aircraft, as you move south, will move from north to south. The second aircraft that fell down was 192 degrees, which is almost exactly west of Srinagar, 19 nautical miles from Srinagar. That was a Su-30 MKI. Okay, and then slightly south of Srinagar, 41 nautical miles south of Srinagar, and 144-degree direction, which will be southeast of Srinagar actually, and that aircraft was a Rafale. Okay, and then south of that, which is close to Jammu, another UAV fell down. So we have 3 aircraft there, and then another Rafale fell down around east of Jammu, 7 nautical miles from LOC. Another Rafale fell down. So you have MiG-29, 230, Rafale, another Rafale, and the last Rafale, as per them, fell down in, I think, in the Bathinda area. So this is all the. So I think that's what they are showing. So there's nothing they are showing. Let me see if there's something they're showing in Rajasthan. I don't think they're showing anything in Rajasthan. It's all in, from what I could gather, up in the, yeah. So it's 3 Rafales, 1 MiG-29, and 1 Su-30. Clear, buddy? Okay. Let's take more questions.
The last one was the one coming behind the camera. That was in,
I think so. I think so. It's not very clear that because of that banner thing, it's not very clear. But I think that's the Bathinda. Bathinda one we are sure because we have visuals of it. So that's Bathinda one. So they didn't tell us what type of UAV was drone, but UAVs are unmanned aerial vehicles, and they can also carry stand-up weapons, the ones that India has, and he has a couple of them. And I also want to touch upon the weapon systems that Indians use. Okay, so I talked about the Indians use Scalp. Scalp is a French made air-to-ground missile. It is range of around 200 to 250 kilometers. Can carry a payload up to 1,000 pounds. So and then it has so it's a very good stand-up capability, very good missile. It has all multiple different ways to navigate. Okay, it can do inertial navigation, GPS, and there are other different. I've forgotten the names of those navigation available, which is not available for civil, but for military you can use. Plus, what Scalp has is a very interesting system. It has IR homing. What it does is it also has AI. So what it does is you feed the coordinates into it before you actually take it up in the air, and then you can give it the general picture of the area, and in that you can mark what is the target. So then when it is very close, not very close, it's near to the target area, it kind of takes off its cone, and behind that cone you have an IR high resolution camera, and it starts scanning that whole area using that IR camera, and then it can identify from the image that you gave to it, it can identify that particular target. And once it identifies, then nothing can stop it. Nothing can stop it, okay? Then it will go and hit it exactly there. Like you can't jam it because it's basically like Tesla. There are many people who have driven Tesla. Tesla basically is using pictures, and using the picture that it's able to navigate. And the same thing is built into this missile. But the difference is it's an IR camera, not a normal what you call visible light camera. So that is Storm Shadow. The other one that they use is called hammer bombs. Hammer is not a bomb; it's a kit, like a JDAM. I think it's a French or British made kit, and India has a lot of them. The kit goes on a conventional bomb, and what it does is you can give it the coordinates, and it has its own navigation. And once the bomb drops, it also has wings which come out. and it can make the now bomb glidable. So then it glides the bomb towards the target. So its range is limited versus Scalp. Its range is close to 60, maximum 70 kilometers. But it's also very accurate, has multiple navigation means. And what it does is, yeah, so that's the hammer. And you can Google it and read more about it. These are the two weapon systems that India used. But the phenomenal thing I found out was like, and there is in some of my tweets, the pictures that came out of once India had fired these, they hit most of their targets. But there's something very interesting I noticed in the damage pictures that came out of the damage of the civilian building in Pakistan. Let me show that here. You see the images that came out show a lot of buildings being damaged. These buildings are right in the middle of the city, but hardly any people being killed or blood on the area, anything. Hardly have seen any pictures. And this is in line with what some of the Pakistanis uh, who joined our spaces told me that Harjeet, that these buildings were evacuated just 2 days before, and or 3 days before. So that kind of points to that there could be some element of coordination between the two countries in terms which has happened in past, that they do this fake fight for their mutual benefit. So it has an element of choreographed bombing, but that cannot be choreographed at the operational level, right? So they could have given the intelligence that we are going to bomb this. They could have evacuated, but they won't tell this to their pilots who are going to defend that area or are going to attack it. So that's why the losses. It's very interesting that we don't see human casualties in these pictures.
Do you have a knowledge about the PL-15, the Pakistan used?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Anybody else can say, but PL-15 is the air-to-air missile that the Chinese have developed. Its export version is called PL-15E, maybe for exports, and the Pakistanis were given these PL-15Es by the Chinese, and they can fit it to the J-10Cs, and I believe also to the JF-17s, and and the J-10C, and some analysts are claiming that the J-10C is the one which shot down. Some are saying J-20, but I believe the J-10C is probably the one which shot down most of the aircraft. And the J-10C has a very long nose. If you look at that picture of a J-10C, okay, that long nose tells you that J-10C, the radar of our aircraft is generally in the nose. That long nose indicates that it might have a very, very super powerful radar. And it is that radar today which was probably the reason why they were able to achieve superior firing solutions earlier. And the PL-15E, somebody can Google, I think its range is around 150 kilometers. But that's the range of the missile. You don't want to fire it right. I think it's 200 kilometers on paper, but probably you don't want to fire it at more than 150, 100 kilometers. So the J-10C might have actually come in very close to the, maybe even 50 to 70 kilometers, might have even come or even entered India. We will not know because J-10C has stealth capability. And the Pakistanis will never tell you, because they don't want to reveal their tactics. Okay, that much they will not reveal. It could very well have been that there were a couple of J-10s roaming inside Indian territory. Their Indian air defense, air warning systems not picking them up, and the J-10Cs were having a field day. Okay, take one, take two, take three, take four, and it could very well be that situation.
Right now, they are claiming that the Pakistan Air Force are inside the air.
Oh, really? Who's claiming that?
Suleiman and those guys are posting it like 25 minutes ago.
I won't be surprised. Look, so what this, let me, people should understand a concept in air battle, okay? It's called air superiority. So, air superiority is when one air force proves to the other air force that its equipment and its training and manpower, its air force now can shoot down, like, is no match for your aircraft. And if you come down to make another fight, we are going to shoot you down. Once that is proven, the air force, which is the weaker one, it will be foolish for it to get any of its further assets into that. Okay, so in this battle, Pakistani Air Force proved to the Indian Air Force that they have air superiority. What that means is you better not take off. If you take off, you are gone. And that's true. Like now, Indian Air Force has its best of the best out on the system, out on this in this battle. Entire Indian Air Force was up in the air basically. Any fighter jet which could fight. Their best missiles were up in the air. They had surprise on their side. Pakistan was the one which didn't have surprise on their side. And the Pakistan Air Force was able to get airborne, not only deter them, take down 5 of their aircraft without a single loss on their end. If Pakistani Air Force had 1 or 2 losses, or even 1 loss, I would not have said they have air superiority because maybe let's say 2 losses, then we could say, okay, maybe a matter of luck. But the fact they had 0 loss and they were able to take down 5 of them, and then they're saying we could have taken down more, which is probably true, which has proven now that in Pakistani Air Force has air superiority. What that means is now whenever their aircraft will come to Indian territory, Indian Air Force will not get an interceptor airborne to tackle them because that will be suicidal. That will be unprofessional. That will be like telling a pilot to go to his death just for making a fake point or just for your ego. And professional soldiers never do that. That'd be foolish. And so the Pakistani Air Force, in the air superiority, when you have air superiority, you will go and patrol that area, kind of show that I'm superior. And you basically send aircraft to patrol and you basically want to tempt them to get airborne. Okay, you try to hit the ego of the enemy so that somebody gets airborne and then you shoot it down. So that is probably what is happening right now. Because Pakistani Air Force has air superiority, they will have their J-10Cs flying high up, so they are visible. Okay, they'll make themselves deliberately visible to the Indian air defense systems, and basically tease them that hey, get airborne. And so if Suleiman is claiming that, and if and he can't know it, somebody else should have passed on this information, and this would be a deliberate leak by the Pakistani Air Force to put some pressure on the Indian Air Force through the public and media to get their aircraft airborne. Anyways, it's not a very it's a professional thing to do. So sorry if I'm
Commissioner for Enjoy, Raj Kumar Thapar has been killed during Pakistan army strike in the Rajouri.
Oh, yeah, that is what they actually, the Pakistanis actually announced, I think the DGISPR, that they will go after the real terrorists for this Pahalgam attack. They promised it and they said this is a promise. And I don't know whether it was a targeted attack on the DCP, but or it was just a matter. But you should see, till now, what we have seen, the Pakistan has gained credibility in my eyes. They are doing what they say. They are not saying what they won't do. So we could see some targeted hits within the Indian territory now, given that the Pakistani Air Force has complete air superiority. And
Bias, Udhampur, Kanpur, Jalandhar, Gujarat, Delhi, Rajasthan, Srinagar, and Chandigarh.
wow,
It's because Indian military site hit.
wow, nice. I mean, in a way that, as a Sikh perspective, and the military targets is fine to knowledge and because for Sikhs it's good news because India was India. I actually heard that the Indian actually eventually did it. They will basically fire ballistic missiles at own cities where Sikhs are in majority to kind of create. Because for India, let's see what is the purpose of this entire operation, false flag operation. Right here? The whole thing is India had 3 aims: conduct a false flag operation, kill own citizens, to blame Pakistan and put on that I am the victim of terrorism in front of the international audience. That is aim 1. Aim 2, to deflect pressure away from international audience, international players on it that it was currently undergoing. Aim 3, India knows that the Sikh population within Punjab today is totally disenchanted with India and they are actually becoming friendly to the Punjabi Muslims from West Punjab with whom They share ethnic, cultural, deep cultural, ethnic, and tribal bonds. So that was a big, I think, strategic risk for Delhi. And in desperation, they wanted to heat up the LOC, and in that heat, they wanted to hit something Sikh holy sites or Sikh cities, and then blame it on Pakistan to create animosity between the Punjabi Sikhs and the Punjabi Muslims, and which is very critical for the survival of the Indian Hindu nationhood. So, because if Punjabi Sikhs and Punjabi Muslims come together, there is no India. India is gone. India was created through partition of Punjab. So, so I think it is that which is guiding, which was the main objective of Pahalgam. But it's amazing how I always knew on paper and looking at the failure of Tejas, knowing Air Force, the limitations, and there's so many limitations of Indian Air Force. I feel bad talking about, but I can guarantee you, like tell you this fact, the Su-30 MK aircraft of India is not an aircraft worth combat. It should not. It should never be taken into combat. Like so, to give you an example, when we plan an exercise, if we needed three Su-30s, we will plan for six to get airborne, and eventually we'll get three airborne. But three will have some problem before even take off. And when three will take off, one will eventually turn back with some malfunction or other. Some light will come up, and eventually, and that's if you are lucky. Okay, you will get an exercise with a Su-30. You are lucky. That's your lucky day, and that is the the level of faultiness and unreliability that some of these Russian trash has. And MiG-29 would still fly, but they have zero endurance, not zero endurance, but like very poor endurance, and they are also very what you call prone to jamming, prone to faults, and you never know when you get a MiG-29 there whether it can fight or it will have to return back with some system problem. So Rafales were the only, and Mirage 2000 are the only fighting aircraft that Indian Air Force has. But I didn't knew that what Pakistan has is superior to them. So what Pakistan has proven is that they are way superior. They can literally take down the falls or like falling planes from the air any point in time, anytime they want it. I mean, and hats off to Pakistanis for a deep display of. And I'm not speaking as a fellow Punjabi or a Sikh who has a grudge against India. I'm just speaking as a professional. I'm just speaking as an Air Force professional, and yeah, I'm super impressed. So Baghdad aa gaya. Let's bring him up if he can come.
You're claiming another Indian fighter jet fell in South. Not confirmed yet, but this morning.
Oh, so they're obviously yeah, and this Freedom Paji, this will this explains this presentation now explains why India's reaction was to launch missiles and drones and not another air attack. Yeah, because that would have been suicidal. So, so that's why they ended up launching so many missiles after that and artillery shells. And now the Pakistanis are retaliating, and now the price is being paid by their military. Army was not even part of the operation, but army is getting the pounding.
Military side, that's a big loss for India. Like think about the equipment and all the weapons and everything is burning now. Like I'm seeing a lot of videos came from India. Look, so everybody has a phone now, right? The one in the Rajouri is confirmed. And now people are posting videos from Gujarat. So it's happening. Maybe you're right. They have a stealth technology, J10. You can't see that.
Yeah, and I'll walk you through the RCS. Okay, but anyway, Snapanji, if you can, in the interim, just check. There are a lot of speaker requests coming. I want if you can check the profiles before taking them.
Yeah.
It's fine to take. It's fine to take any Indian, but as long as he's not, a guy who will just create ruckus, okay, or add something nonsense on the top. And okay, so let me. I think this is a good point that he. Let me show you a comparison. Let me see. Let me show you what is stealth. Okay. So when you talk about stealth, what does that stealth mean? Let me show it to you here in the picture format.
So that way, like a radar doesn't pick up you, or it just reflects back, or like you won't get the radar back, right?
Okay. I'll show you what the stealth means. Okay, let me show. Uh, okay. Uh, okay. Open this up. Okay. The RCS is called radar cross section. Okay. So a radar cross section is how big an objective is, or the probability when it is being looked at by a radar. So the higher the number, the easier it is for a Doppler radar to pick up that aircraft. So, so like Boeing 737 will have an RCS of, let us say, 20. A modern jet will have an RCS of like in 0.0005. But that's the difference. So Boeing, when it's traveling, you can see it from a radar, simple radar, way far off. But stealthy aircraft, and that's the challenge. That's the real technology today. You don't want your aircraft to be seen, and if you can't be seen, you can't be hit. And in BVR combat, you don't see with eyes, you see with radars and sensors. And if you're stealth, you are invincible almost. So let's look at what is the RCS of modern aircraft, okay? And then I'll tell you what is the RCS of Su. Okay, if you can see this picture, I'm just showing it up on. So the RCS of Su-57, which is supposed to be a stealth aircraft of Russians, is 0.1 meter square. Okay, the RCS of F-35 is 0.005 meter square. The RCS of F-117 Nighthawk is 0.001 meter square. Okay, so see how the RCS is dropping. The B2 is 0.0001, as is the F-22 Raptor. So Nathanji, you want to make a guess? What is the RCS of Su-30? So experts say it is anywhere from 5 to 20 square meters. So okay, so tell me, like, you need an unlimited number of F-22 Raptors flying together to create the radar signature equivalent to a probably more than 500 of them will fly together. Then they'll become one Su-30 on your radar. Okay, so a Su-30 MKI is a liability in an air battle. In an air battle, which nowadays uses BVR, which is BVR, beyond visual range weapons. So, whenever India parades Su-39 to Indian public, I feel sorry for them. Like, you guys have been made a fool.
Remember back in last year, Bangalore or West Bengal, they had a beach where all the aircraft came, and there was a event where Su-35 has to go with F-15, and they never accepted it.
Yeah. Sorry, can you say it again? What happened?
There was an event in India where all the countries came with their aircraft, right?
Uh-huh.
Su-35, and then Americans came with F-16, right?
Uh-huh.
So there was an event for people where Su-35 has to go against F-16, right?
Uh-huh.
But Russians, at the last moment, they never showed up. They called out.
Are you surprised? They were smart not to do that.
Yeah, because they're gonna get exposed because they were trying to sell images that
Yeah, Russia has been selling trash to India for centuries. It's Russian trash, total trash. It's not like trash in the sense that it's not as good as Western weaponry. But today, what has happened is it's a landmark event because first time China has proven that their weapon systems platforms are superior to European. This is not a small thing because the European system might not be superior to American, but they're very close. So, so yeah, this has huge geopolitical implications. That's what I say. This air battle has proven that the Chinese systems are better than European for sure, and most probably even the American system. Unless and America has a lot of hidden things up its sleeve. We never know what will come out. So this air battle will have sent every single general in America right now studying and re-looking at its budget and all the innovation. What are we doing to counter Chinese? This has turned the military setup in the world upside down. Now the army will be wondering, the U.S. Army will be wondering, all these other land-based systems that China has developed, are they also as good as their air-based? So this is huge. I'm telling you, this is huge. And yeah, this is huge implication, and this could have God knows what other kind of implications that we'll know come in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, SK Rafi, go ahead.
So, Fazil, can I ask a question? I think it's related to your discussion topic.
Yeah.
Like what I asked you before. So, did there any impact happening in India for Pakistani attack? And I also watched Pakistani ISPR report that India tried to attack on Afghanistan also, and like Pakistan, they also attack on their own base in the sheep land, like Punjab. Is this reported right?
Yeah, this is a very, very valid point you raise, and I have actually tweeted on it today. The sad thing of all this is that the real targets of the Indian regime, one of the real targets of Indian regime, are the Sikhs, especially any chances of any emotional bond or friendly bond forming between the Punjabi Sikhs and the Punjabi Muslims. So the Indian strategy in this entire episode was to create heat across the international border and then to use it, the fog of the war, to have incite Pakistan to hit some of the Sikh cities, Amritsar, etc., where pop, there's concentration of Sikh population, have some Sikh depth, and then claim and show it to the Sikhs that look, the Pakistanis are your enemy, your Punjabi Muslim is your enemy, and rile up the sentiment and emotionally manipulate them to stand with the Indian state. This is the very first time in 75 years that the Sikhs are not with the Indian state, and this has sent jitters down the spine of the Indian establishment because the Indian establishment is nervous that okay, Sikhs are not fighting for us, and Sikhs are unhappy with us. They might very well end up having friendly relations with Punjabi Muslims, and that would mean that this whole border between India and Pakistan would go off. And what is the need for in India? What is the need for this army? Then other nations will also demand their right to self-determination, like Canadian, Bangladeshi, etc. So that's their big fear that if Sikhs end up having friendly relations with Punjabi Muslims, the entire Indian state, the entire Indian empire might disintegrate. So for that, what they have done is we not only have reports, we have confirmations that the Indian army set up artillery guns and rocket launchers in the middle of Amritsar city. Amritsar is like the Vatican of the Sikhs. It's 20 kilometers from the international border. And they have set up artillery guns, rocket launchers, and fired from within the Amritsar populated area where the Sikh population used to live. The idea was because in modern day warfare, the artillery guns which are hit quickly calculate the trajectory of where the shell is coming from, and they automatically hone in, they automatically start firing, the rocket launcher especially, in that direction to hit that very spot. So the idea was that to trigger the Pakistani air defense to fire missiles and launchers into Amritsar and maybe even hit Darbar Sahib. That never succeeded, and hats off to the Pakistani army. I think they figured out this is what the Indians are trying to do. I don't know how they tuned their air defense systems, but they never did that. And eventually, when that was happening, that strategy didn't work. I had predicted on my Twitter line, and here is the tweet I said. I said, now that the Indian strategy of firing from within Amritsar is not working, they most probably will throw bombs on Amritsar themselves from their own bases and then claim that the Pakistanis bombed you. And that's exactly what happened yesterday, like today, our morning time. In the night, the Indians fired 6 ballistic missiles from the Adhampur base into Amritsar. 5 of them landed in Amritsar. One actually fell very close to the Adhampur base itself. And to basically then started their whole media started this disinformation campaign. Oh, it's Pakistan which fired the missile. But guess what? The Pakistani army has the digital signature, the radar in tracks of these projectiles coming out of Adhampur and hitting Amritsar, and we need to put pressure on them to release that. It's difficult for them to release that. Totally get it, because this capability to track like missile taking off and hitting there, they probably want to hide it. But if they have it, they should release it. And this is where I'll just play that clip from the DGISPR here, okay, which came out. Very important for Sikhs to know how sinister this game plan of the Indian state is in this regard. And
So, Fadi, can I ask just one point?
just one sec, I'll just play this clip, then we'll come to your point, okay?
मैं आपको एक शॉकिंग खबर देना चाहता हूँ। इंडिया ने अब से थोड़ी देर पहले 6 बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल आदमपुर से फायर किए हैं। इनमें से 1 बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल आदमपुर में ही किया है और बाकी 5 मिसाइल भारतीय पंजाब में अमृतसर के इलाके में हिट किए। इंडिया अपनी मजबूत साधनों के जरिए इंडियन पंजाब में सिखों की आबादियों को टारगेट कर रहा है। हमारी तमाम हमदर्दी सिखों के साथ है, उन अकलीतों के साथ है जो कि इस वक्त इसकी अंदरूनी साजिशों और मुतालिम का शिकार भी हो रही है। This is a shocking development, a provocation of highest order, where India has now started firing ballistic missiles at its own population, which doesn't make any sort of sense. Insanity और अकल से माउट एक हरकत। अपने ही मुल्क में 5 बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल अमृतसर में और 1 आदमपुर में गिरा दिए, टारगेट कर दिए। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Okay, so that's one, and this is my tweet. Okay, I had tweeted it on May 7th that we should brace up, and this tweet had gone viral. There were more than 1.5 million views on this tweet, and I believe that it was this tweet which led to the sudden banning of 8,000 Twitter accounts by Indian government posting Twitter. My account was also immediately banned and restricted in India. I had 2. One was already banned. The second one I had opened recently, and it survived some time. But yesterday they banned that as well. Obviously, given the nature of the Indian regime, it is no democracy. It has no idea of freedom of speech or truth and morality. It is all about controlled brainwashing of innocent Indians. And then, as I predicted, the Indians actually did end up firing into Amritsar. And I think it's very important for people from Punjab, Sikhs especially, please take this evidence. Please, I have these videos. You can't share the direct tweets. Download these videos. I have shared these videos in DMs. Send it to your loved ones, Sikhs in Punjab. Tell them what's going on. Tell them how the Indian state is trying to manipulate them into basically hating their neighbors, their brothers, their tribal brothers. The Punjabi Musliman is not our enemy. We have been living for centuries with peace. This hate, this war, this hysteria is totally created by this fake Indian state. And as long as this Indian state exists, there will be no peace in the subcontinent, because they'll continue to create this false flag operation, continue to create these wars to basically consolidate this so-called Indian state, which is nothing but a Hindu Sanatani terrorist regime. It is not democracy. It's a terrorist regime. Freedom Baji, go ahead.
Yeah, that's one of the fighter jets they claim to be the one they also that sort of fall through. And not only the military, Pakistan also wants a cyber attack. So immediately side got taken down. I tried to do it, but I couldn't find it. And there are another like 150 big websites for big business and TV channels. So they got taken down too. So it's a cyber attack too.
Wow. Okay. Let me go to Suleiman. I think Suleiman is sharing a lot of good.
You can check the net up there when you're straight.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to open it here on my this thing. Oh yeah, on the Nest. Okay, yeah, it should be there in my profile. I want to also show it on the live stream. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Let me go here. Okay. Breaking. Okay, let's share my screen. Let's see what Suleiman is saying. Breaking. Pakistan launch huge cyber attack on India. Crippling their digital infrastructure. 10 SCAD systems in the energy sector compromised. 1744 web servers destroyed. All data permanently wiped. Wind turbines and consumer electricity portals shut down. Complete ICT infrastructure of Indian Railways, Delhi Gas Discom, and Kashmir Electric Discom destroyed, data deleted. ICT infrastructure of Indian Railways. 120 routers and 1310 IP cameras defaced, configuration changed, 507 ICT devices and databases obliterated, 50 mail service compromised, 13 government portals defaced and taken offline, 150 databases stolen, sensitive data leak. BJP Madhya Pradesh website defaced. Okay, let's see if we can open that. Madhya Pradesh website. I can open it. Right now it's not defaced. Maybe they can took it back or God knows. Let's see. Where's it gone? Yeah. 110 corporate websites taken down, 3 news channels defaced and disrupted. Okay. We'll have to verify this. So it'll be good if somebody can verify what's going on with this claim and what else they're claiming. And where is he claiming that there are, okay, there are these strikes. Makdoom, some, I don't know whether this is a verifiable one, but he's claiming that Beas. Yeah, I would wait for the DG ISPR.
People have videos of Beas hitting it. I don't know if it's an older one or a new one, but people are speculating a video of Beas.
Oh, this is a Pathankot. Okay, let's play this video. Let's play what this guy says.
भाई बहुत बुरा माहौल है यहाँ पे अभी मिसाइल जैसे बड़े धमाके हो रहे हैं भाई बहुत धमाके हो रहे हैं मम्मी बड़े धमाके हो रहे हैं पूरा ब्लैक आउट हो रखा बुरी हालत है
Okay, now this again shows that how professional, honestly, the Pakistani army has been. They're just attacking the Pathankot airbase, and that's how it should be. And attack the military targets, and they are, worthy targets to have. And amazingly, the only place where the civilian targets have been hit in India are in Punjab, Sikh places. Why? Why would Pakistan attack a Sikh place when you know the Sikhs are on the Pakistani side? It's basically India attacking its own people, own citizens. It obviously India doesn't consider Sikh as its own; they consider Sikhs as a danger to them. But that tells you something. That why did this whole bombing in India in civilian areas happen only in Punjab? And it's done by the Indian regime, which is obvious. What else do we have? Gujarat Herald News. Okay.
There is a report that the BrahMos missile silo is also was also destroyed by Pakistani missiles.
Okay.
Can you please verify?
No, we can't verify all this level of detail. I think we'll have to rely on, like, we'll have to analyze all this is happening. Maybe by tomorrow we'll have more clear picture. Right now all the Indian handlers will be just pumping nonsense, and all this will happen. We'll have some videos come out by tomorrow. I'll analyze those videos, and we can then also listen to what officially Pakistan army shares, because the Pakistan army has been pretty credible in all this. They have been sharing evidence, videos. The Indian side has been just primarily with a lot of emotion and kind of theatrics and Bollywood style, scripts, but hardly any military professionalism, honestly. And no senior officer is coming out. It's just two poor little junior officers who are made to stand in front, Davies and whatnot. Man, what's the point of putting two lady officers giving that briefing? What are they trying to? They're basically trying to achieve some brownie points. They treat it like it seems like the Indian Babu establishment is running the show, and for them it is a Bollywood movie. Okay, it's shameful. And so some senior officer who has some credibility. So when you don't want to lie, you basically send a junior officer, okay, and then you can give them a script to say it. Like, why is the Indian Army chief not standing up and saying what exactly happened? Like on the Pakistani side, you have the chief, the DGISPR, you have the deputy chief of air. They are briefing and they are basically showing evidence. What is stopping the Indian side? Like they send these two ladies, the poor ladies, who are given the script by a babu, to basically, and then one of them is, I don't know, like what is her training? Like she speaks as if like she is the next, Bollywood scriptwriter. Emotion and हमने ये कर दिया फिर हमने उनका ये कर दिया. What is this? This Gobar Arya syndrome has basically even bitten, the serving officers. And at least the lady that comes from the Indian Air Force, she is professional because the Air Force is a professional. But what happened to the army? It's shameful. And oh, really?
Yeah, I put up there. The use of the book, I don't know if this big or not, but if it's happening, there's a big geopolitical change. It might put a fuel in the fire, like in the Middle East, because Israel won't take this very lightly.
Yeah. Okay, there is this guy. I think he's writing the right thing. I want to read this out. Okay. Yes, he's giving the correct message here. Seems like a Muslim gentleman, but he's giving a message to us Sikhs, but his message is correct. He says, "Attention, Khalsa. Sikhs of the world unite. Separate terrorism hunts and haunts from Delhi to Toronto. Our RNAW's knives, RSS's lies, Modi's ballistic butchery. The Sikh Sangat roars louder than their lives. It is now or never." I totally agree. I think it's an historic opportunity. ਪੰਥ ਲਈ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਲਈ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਚਲੋ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਰਹਿਣਾ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹਲੇ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਦੇ ਰਾਹ ਤੇ ਤੁਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਤੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹਲੇ ਵੀ ਪਈਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਆ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਪੁਰਾਣੀਆਂ, ਇਟਸ ਨਾਓ ਔਰ ਨੈਵਰ ਫॉर ਯੂ। ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਸਟੇਟ ਇਜ਼ ਯਰ ਬਿਗੇਸਟ ਐਨਮੀ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੀ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਰਾਬਰੀ ਦੇ ਹੱਕ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਦੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿਣ ਦੇਣਾ। ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸੋਮੇ ਵੀ ਲੁੱਟਣੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਰਗਤ ਵੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਧਰਮ ਦਾ ਪਾਠ ਹੋਣਾ। ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਜਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਦੋ ਹੀ ਆਪਸ਼ਨਾਂ ਨੇ, ਜਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨੀਵੀਂ ਪਾ ਲਓ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ, ਜਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਹਿਬਜ਼ਾਦਿਆਂ ਦੀ, ਆਪਣੇ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਦੀ ਮਿਸਾਲ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਤੱਕੋ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਕੀ ਸੀ, ਸਾਹਿਬਜ਼ਾਦਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਲਮਾ ਹੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਨਾ ਸੀ, ਕਲਮਾ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਬਣ ਜਾਣੀ ਸੀ ਗੱਲ। ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਰੱਬ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੰਨਦੇ, ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਰੱਬ ਨੂੰ ਮੰਨਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਉਸੇ ਇੱਕ ਰੱਬ ਨੂੰ ਮੰਨਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਮੰਨਦੇ ਆ। ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਰ ਈਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੰਨੀ ਕਿਸੇ, ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੋਵਰੈਨਿਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਛੱਡੀ, ਅਸੀਂ ਜਬਰ ਨਾਲ ਕਹੇ ਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ। ਫਿਰ ਅੱਜ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਜਬਰ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ, ਲੁੱਟ ਰਿਹਾ ਆ। ਪੂਰਾ 35,000 ਸਾਡੇ ਭਰਾਵਾਂ ਭੈਣਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਲੁੱਟੀ, ਮਾਰੇ ਗਏ, ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੇ ਹਮਲਾ ਕੀਤਾ। ਇੱਕ ਦਸ਼ਕ ਦਾ 15 ਸਾਲ ਐਮਰਜੈਂਸੀ ਆਰਮੀ ਰੂਲ ਲਾ ਕੇ 1.5 ਲੱਖ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਤਲ, ਟੌਰਚਰ, ਭੈਣਾਂ ਦੀ ਬੇਅਦਬੀ ਦੇ ਕਰਨੀ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਪੂਰੀ ਇੱਕ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਡਰੱਗ ਦੇ ਕੇ, ਫੈਂਟਨੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਖਤਰਨਾਕ ਡਰੱਗ ਪੰਪਿੰਗ ਕਰਕੇ ਖਤਮ ਕਰਨਾ। ਡਾਇਸਪੋਰਾ 'ਚ ਬੈਠੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਰਨਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਹੋ। ਸਾਡੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਲੁੱਟ ਲੈਣਾ, ਪਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਬੂੰਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਛੱਡੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ 'ਚ। ਅਗਲੇ 3 ਸਾਲ ਬਾਅਦ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਕੋਈ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦਾ, ਡੈਜ਼ਰਟ ਬਣ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਰੇਗਿਸਤਾਨ 'ਚ ਛੱਡਦੇ ਨੇ। ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਜੇ ਹੁਣ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਕਦ? ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਸਿੰਘੋ, ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਨਾਤਨੀ ਭਰਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨੂੰ, ਬਚਣਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ। ਦਿੱਲੀ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਵੰਡ ਕੇ ਆ, ਤੇ ਜਿੱਦਣ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਇਕੱਠਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਚੜ੍ਹਦਾ ਤੇ ਲਹਿੰਦਾ, ਉਦੋਂ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀਆਂ ਹੱਦਾਂ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਨੂੰ 3 ਪਾਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਫਿਰ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਰਾਜ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਰਹੇਗਾ? ਤਾਂ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖ, ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ, ਆਪਣੇ ਹਰਿਆਣੇ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਇਹ ਕਿਹੜਾ DNA ਤਾਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਐਥਨੀਕਲੀ ਕਲਚਰਲੀ ਤਾਂ ਸੇਮ ਹੀ ਹੈ। ਆ ਹਿਮਾਚਲੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਆ ਜੰਮੂ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਤੇ ਨਫ਼ਰਤ ਦਾ ਚਸ਼ਮਾ ਲਾ ਕੇ, ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਨਫ਼ਰਤਾਂ ਕਰਾ ਕੇ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਦੀਆਂ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੰਗਾ ਜਮਨੀ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਰਾਜ ਬਣਾਇਆ। ਹੁਣ ਉਹ ਪੂਰੇ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਗਊ ਮੂਤ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਫੀਡਿੰਗ ਲਾਈਕ ਸੁਪਰਸਟੀਸ਼ਨ ਐਂਡ everything to the entire Indian subcontinent. Who is happy with India? Tell me one community, one nation which is happy with India. Bengalis are not being allowed to live as sovereign nations. The Northeasterns are not being allowed to live as sovereign nations. The Tamilians are not being allowed to live as sovereign nations. They are treated as tax colonies. Their culture is destroyed by forcing them to learn Hindi. The Kashmiris are not allowed to live as sovereign nations. The Sikhs are not allowed to live as sovereign nations. The Hindus, who themselves are a Hindu belt, are not allowed to live as equal citizens because they are Shuddha. 85% are supposed to be under Manu's order. So then what is the benefit of this? This is a historic opportunity. The onus is on the Pakistan army. They should open the land border, enter the plains of Punjab, and I can guarantee you, from my assessment, every single Sikh is going to stand with the army, with their brothers from the land of Punjab. They're going to take their arms and they're going to march towards Delhi. And I'm telling you, the day the Pakistan army enters Punjab and the day the very first Sikh regiment deserts, Delhi will vanish. There will be no sign of Delhi government in Delhi. There will be no Amit Shah coming to duty next day. There will be no Modi. They will not be even found. They will be on some island which has been bought by Adani, which we will never know where Amit Shah went, where Adani went. They'll be given safe passage, their lives guaranteed by people like Donald Trump, and they'll be given one island where they will die a death of anonymity. And that is their right future, okay? So it's very important. But I know we got distracted, but I wanted to keep this space mostly focused on the air battle. I don't want this to be long. I think we'll open up another space. So this remains focused on the topic at hand. I think we kind of beaten it to death. What I will suggest is that we stop this particular space and maybe we'll open up another space with the development that's going on. And then tomorrow I have one space already. I'm trying to get some social media influencers from Bangladesh, some Tamil friends, some Kashmiri friends, some Land of Punjab friends, and get a panel going to bring the unity in these nations, because it is a historic moment for us. to put an end to this British colonial terrorist relic called Indian state and really gain on freedom and really decolonize the subcontinent. The ball is in the court, or actually the onus, the biggest onus is not just on the Pakistani army and land of Punjab. The onus is also on the youth, the Bengali youth, the northeastern youth, the Tamilian youth, the Kashmiri youth, the Sikh youth. Let's get together on social media. Let's tell the whole world what is the reality of India. And as we get together, you will see these tyrants will vanish. Okay, with that message, let me take my leave. We'll definitely have a different space. But just to wrap up, what a professional performance by the Pakistani Air Force. We had doubts on what exactly happened in this air battle. Phenomenal. An air battle I didn't ever think I will ever get to see in this life. It's historic. You guys should watch this, again and really learn from what's going on. Okay, thank you so much. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.